All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 98 of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast, brought to you as always by ourselves. Matt, what's going on in Ohio?
Winter's going on. I'm glad. I know last week
hit us too.
I know. I'm glad that snow didn't interfere with trick-or-treating last week. I was really proud to hear that.
What?
You showed your kid the
Oh, you mean at my house?
Yes. At your house.
Yeah. No. We went and trick-or-treated anyways. No big deal. Yeah, it was good. It was cold, and it was funny because I think there was a trick-or-treating on the Saturday. I was gone. But it was nicer on like the previous Saturday or whenever they did the other trick-or-treating, and my kids had, certain outfits. And then, it snowed. My wife's like, oh, well, they can't wear these outfits. So they just decided to wear onesie animal costumes. So they changed their outfits. So it was good. Last minute change. But yeah, they got all the candies. They're happy.
Nice. Good.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Matt. Well, hey, I told you I got a question to pose to you. And I'm excited to hear what your take is. So I did a Mental Monday last night on Instagram Live. It'll hit the RUDIS website today. But I posted this meme of Forrest Gump, and it said that, and he's making a dumb face, and it says that look when your wrestling dad realizes that a college coach doesn't care about a 10-year-old state championship. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it was funny, but I got a lot of pushback when I posted it. And so obviously, I know that statement's not in contention, but a lot of people would contend, well, they need to take it seriously early when they would, if they want to be good later. And so here's the one thing that I was thinking about that was really funny, because I've seen some of the same people posting when I posted talent doesn't exist, which also gets people riled up, Matt. Okay, so it's going to be a long-winded question. But if you truly believe in talent, that means what you believe is that someone needs to put less effort in to get good at something. So therefore, they could start later and still be good at it. But those people also believe you need to be good early to be good late. Those two things don't seem to be even possible to match up to each other. How do you feel about that?
Okay, so let's break this down. Let's go part one. Let's address part one first. Again, repose just the first half of the question for me, and then get into the second.
Okay, well, I'll pose the two questions and then them together. Matt, would you agree that if you believe in talent, that means you believe that it is easier for someone to be good at something because they're predisposed to it?
I don't think it's necessarily easier. There may be.
Well, what is talent then?
There may be some contributing factors that elevate your learning curve or accelerate your learning curve a little quicker.
Well, that means it's easier.
Some people. Yeah, but you still, just because it comes easy doesn't mean you're passionate about it. Just because
I didn't say easy, I just said easier. I said if you truly believe in talent, it comes easier than if you don't have the talent, which is what a lot of people believe.
Well, I think there's a variety of things that, for whatever reason, people just naturally pick them up quicker than other people. It doesn't mean that it
That's what I'm saying. So if you believe that, Matt, then you believe that it's easier for those people to be good.
I will say this. I think it maybe gives them a head start.
That's all I'm saying. They got a head start. That's what I'm saying. They have a head start.
Yeah, I would say that.
Therefore, it's easier.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Okay. So okay, we can agree with that. Those same people also believe it is good. It is important to be good early. Like the only way you can be good later is if you're also good early. So if you believe that talent gives you a head start, therefore it's easier to be successful, why would you need to start early? Why couldn't you just start later if you're talented?
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I've got actually an individual story. Case in point. My oldest brother didn't start wrestling until 8th grade, but in 4 years, he was a 2-time state champ, junior national champ, and the number one wrestler in high school. And he only wrestled, and that was 4 years. So
dang.
I think that's a tricky question. I think it's all. If you start early,
it's a very deep philosophical question.
Yes.
And it makes you really question what you believe.
I think it all comes down. If you start a kid early, it's really predicated on how you're raised and the parental structure or the coaching structure around the athletes. And you also have to have I think, a pretty good understanding of where your kid's mentality is at the time, how hard he can be pushed, how much he wants to be pushed. And I think it all comes down to, we talked about it before. I think it's much more important that an individual falls in love with the sport before they dedicate themselves to it.
Hey,
and I think
you must have listened to my Mental Monday, because that's kind of exactly what I said.
Because I think that there's so many kids that have that, obvious potential. We're talking about the 10-year-old state champ. You can see a ton of kids around the country that have obvious high-end talent, but they never make it there. You see the guys that fall off in high school, fall off in college, even the guys that fall off from college to the senior level. And for whatever reason, I think it's how they've been led to a certain point. And it all leads to the back end. The back end of this is the athlete choosing to be great, making that individual choice as opposed to someone else making that choice for them. Right?
Yeah. No, I
how you arrive at that point is different per the individual, right? Per the individual, per their individual circumstance, per their environment. All these things factor into it. But I think the one fundamental thing that you see in all great athletes is they make the individual choice to be great. Now, they may have been pushed in certain ways or directed or led, in a variety of ways. But I think by and large, every successful athlete at a very high level, and we could probably distinguish what a high level of success means. It comes down to they've chosen to be great at this, not for any other person. There can be contributing factors. Obviously, you want to make your parents happy, you want to make your coach happy, but that can't be the underlying motivation for you to be great at a sport. It's got to come from within the individual.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, as much as I could debate this and talk about this topic,
am I on point? Am I kind of where you were at?
I would agree. I think we're saying the same things, arriving kind of in different directions. Although some of the things we said were almost exactly the same. So you guys can watch my Mental Monday. It's on the RUDIS website or it's on Instagram Live. It only stays on there for 24 hours. So depending on when you listen to this, you may or may not be able to see it on Instagram Live.
See, I'm going to have another layer to this discussion tomorrow, Ben, if you don't mind. My wife actually, we were having a conversation, and I've got to revisit it this afternoon or tonight to make sure I've got all the things that we were talking about. That I think the basic argument is similar to the first part of your question, was also pushing kids at a young age, but forcing them to be specifically focused on a single sport at a certain age, as opposed to.
Well, I guess one of the things I mentioned, Matt, I think one of the things I mentioned in my Mental Monday, which I think is really huge and relevant, is, AWA, we're going to have some 10-year-old state champions. That's for sure. Just because they're, we're doing things right and they like it, or their parents have got them out doing activities when they're young, whatever it is. But where I think I differ from a lot of people is winning a state title at 10-year-olds is not the purpose. So I'm not going to make them cut weight. I'm not going to have them do a whole bunch of live. I'm not going to make them overly aggressive. Things that will be highly beneficial to a 10-year-old, but not really lead to any type of long-term success. So that was a differentiation that I made.
Yeah, it's like teaching a 5-year-old a headlock. You know what? They could win a national title with a headlock. We've seen a lot of kids do that, but that's really not going to. That's really not going to benefit them down the road. I mean, that's not a technique that you can. That's really going to yield a high level of success, long-term success. It's just so many different things that we could get in there to that. But I'm gonna bring back another question for you tomorrow or the next day, whenever we jump on our next podcast.
Matt, so the thing I want to start with from this opening weekend, there was a lot of stuff going on. The thing I'm most excited about is Sammy Sasso. I mean, I knew this guy was good, but what he did at Michigan State Open, holy crap. He pinned 4 guys. He tech falls Cannon Store. Man, nobody tech falls Cannon Store. Cannon Store lost 3-1 to Dom Demas. He went to overtime with Jade Ironman. I mean, he is a tough out, and Sasso just put it on him.
Yeah, I mean, heading into the podcast today and going over the weekend, first of all, my first gut reaction when I look at November results is like, I put stock in it, but not a ton. But you sure as heck got to put stock in this a little bit, as far as what not just that
it was a beatdown.
Not that he won. It was the way he won. It was just he decimated everybody.
And he can wrestle from everywhere, Matt. He can be offensive. He can scramble. He can wrestle on bottom. He can wrestle on top. I mean, a really, really impressive performance. And when I look at the rankings, I also see, hey, he Brock Zackel, the guy above him, only beat Ed Scott, who Ed Scott is good, but he's a good high school kid. He only beat Ed Scott 7-6. And so it's like, well, Sasso's over here tech falling Cannon Store, and Brock Zackel's squeaking by Ed Scott. Like, that is a big, gigantic difference.
I mean, it's almost like if you want to look at a national champ, these are the type of results he should be getting the first month of the season, right? He goes and just owns an open tournament. Like no competition, no conversation, just end of story. Yeah. Dominant victory, move on to the next one. Right. And he definitely cemented himself as a top 4 guy. I know he's already ranked in and around there, but if there was any question before this weekend, and again, I'm contradicting myself by hyping this guy the first week of November. And a lot of things can happen, but
no, I mean, some things you gotta hype, Matt. I mean, like my brother would say, some people, if they're in great shape in November and they gas someone out and they win that way, maybe they can't do that in March. But you scored 19 points on somebody. You just showed a whole bunch of different ways you can score points on them, and you're going to score points on them in November, December, January, February, March. Pretty much any time you score 19 points on someone, you're going to score points on them every month of the year.
Yeah, and I know that this is probably going to open up some other forms of discussion that we're going to get into, but this is a sign of a great program when you just reload the next guy, right? When you've had a guy, when you've had a guy at 149 for the past 3 years, that's a 3-time All-American, national finalist, and Micah Jordan, and he's replaced by a guy where you don't even miss a beat, or seemingly don't even miss a beat. I mean, that's the sign of a great.
Matt, that was a loaded question. That was a loaded question for you to say right there.
Yeah.
Sign of a great program, because Ohio State had Snyder leave. They just had Kirk Levitt go in the transfer portal. Malik Heinzelmann is really struggling. They got some other guys really struggling. I mean, they did have some very bright spots. I guess Sasso's their brightest of spots. But then Luke Pletzer beat number 1 Dom Demas. That was going. Carson Karchlow looked really good at 165. So I think you opened up a can of worms there, talking about how great Ohio State's program is, because they are having some bumps in the road right now. And who knows, maybe they'll get through it, no problem.
But you know what? This
is definitely not smooth.
This is the only thing that I would say. Like, the sign of a great program is when you're faced with a setback, and they faced one this past weekend with Kirk Levitt, that they don't miss a beat. Yeah, I mean, is this going to have a big effect? Yeah, this is a guy that they were talking about, probably 4-time All-American, hopefully a couple national titles, all the things that they thought he could be. I think he could still be this, and it's probably not going to be at Ohio State, but it's not like Ohio State's going to fall off the map just because they lost this guy who never competed once in their singlet. I mean, look at Sasso, look at Karchla, look at what Pletcher is doing. I mean, yeah, is it a blow to the program? Yes. Is it going to affect the program?
Yeah.
Yes. Are they going to drop out of the top 10 because of it? No. Are they going to probably even drop out of the top 5? No, I don't think so. And that's why I'm saying that's a sign of a great program, that just, despite the circumstance, through graduation or transfer or injury, the next guy steps up and is ready to compete at a high level. Yes. And even at heavyweight, I know that, everybody, is talking about Kirk Levitt leaving, but it's not like they're going to suck at heavyweight. They've got Singletary, who was on the U23 team, who's
Singletary's good.
So,
and Traub's not bad. Traub's not bad either.
So I get it,
but it's not Kirk.
Yeah, Levitt. It's not Kirk Levitt, but there's very few of those guys, and When
Correct.
you're one of the top programs, you should be in the mix to get that guy. They did get him. He's leaving. And
yes. Hey Matt, I missed one huge thing about the Sasso piece that we were talking about. Caden Storr beat Keyshawn Hayes in the semis. I totally blanked on that.
Yes. Well, I guess that ends that discussion at 149, right?
That ends that discussion. That's I want to say kind of sad for kind of sad for Keyshawn Hayes. He's never gotten to wrestle his ideal weight class in 4 years of college. He's a senior this year, correct?
Yes.
Or is he a junior?
No, he's a senior.
Senior. Yeah, never got to wrestle his ideal weight class, but
I thought he actually did didn't he wrestle his true weight his freshman year? I could be wrong.
Well, he wrestled at 141, and there was whispers that he was too was cutting a lot of weight at that weight class.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate, but again, that's a byproduct back kind of to the point I was making before about the strength and the depth of the premier programs that. There's individuals like this all over the country at the higher level programs like the Penn State, Okie State, Iowa, where you have a guy for all intents and purposes. When you look at him, it's like, yeah, this guy's a multiple time All-American, but for whatever reason, the depth of the weight class, you're kind of on the outside looking in, even though you could probably have a lot of success at a weight class. And so, yeah, it is unfortunate for Hayes that it looks like going into his senior year, he's probably not going to be at his ideal weight class again. I don't know what's in the cards there. I know 57 for Ohio State is probably one of the weight classes that
you got to bump Keyshawn up, right?
You have to.
He could beat all those guys at 57. I would assume because none of them are that great. I mean, Matt, he's I could see Keyshawn All-American at 157 this year for sure. Maybe you told me he beat Brady Berge or Eric Barone or Josh Humphreys, I see it. I could see him All-American for sure at this.
Yeah, because we talked about it a week ago.
No
157 is similar to 149 in the sense like there's some good top end individuals, more so at 157 than 149. There's more, the 2, 3, 4 guys at the top at 157 are probably going to be there, but outside of that, it's pretty wide open. So I would think there should be every reason for Hayes to think, if I'm healthy, if I've got my mind right and my mind wrapped around, okay, this is what I've got to do. This is my last opportunity. If I'm going to make the most of it, if my head's right and I can get my body right, I think he can place without a doubt. I mean, the talent is obvious. I mean, talent's not a question, although you might argue that. Skill is there. Skill is there.
We'll go with skill. Okay, so not to make this an Ohio State show but they were one of the premier teams that competed this weekend. Obviously, we're talking about them a lot. The one thing that I said whoa on, Matt, was Malik Heinzelmann, a guy who I was pretty high on last year. I thought would get in the lineup and do a little bit better than what he did. So he lost to Drew Hildebrandt. No shame in that whatsoever. Drew Hildebrandt's tough. I think a top 10, 12 guy. Okay. But then he got teched 20-0 against Devin Schrader. I had to watch it to make sure it was real, Matt. He got taken down and near falled a whole bunch of times. And he lost 20-0. That was like a whoa for me. What in the heck is going on there?
Yeah. So I think if you're the Ohio State staff, it's one of those things early in the year, you just can't, you got to stay pretty even keel as a coaching staff. You can't get too high or get too low, especially this time of year. They had a handful of really outstanding performances. Sasso, Pletcher, Karchla, all looked outstanding. But then they had some guys like, Hoffman, Smith, Rocky, all struggled a little bit. And I think, that's where you can't get so high on Sasso because you have some other guys. When you look at Smith and you look at Hoffman, it's like, wow, we had some high hopes for these guys, but hey, both of these guys are going.
Hoffman's not panning out, man. I really thought he was going to do better, and he's just Yeah, he's not having a great
Well,
go
that's
at it.
where I would say
Maybe he's cutting too much weight.
Yeah, I would say pump the brakes just a little bit. Let's see what they can do once, because I typically say you got to give most of these guys, especially a Hoffman and a Smith from Ohio State, who are going down weight classes, give them at least 3 or 4 weigh-ins to kind of see how their body adjusts, adapts, and how they start performing once they get their routine down, because that's a different routine, making 174 and making 197 as it is 165 and 184. So I think you've got to dial those things in. I think as much as the coaches are probably talking to these two guys about their training and about technique, an equal portion of time is probably dedicated to what can they do better with their weight loss plan, with their nutrition, with their strength and conditioning. How are they going to dial those things in?
Actually, who we had in yesterday, Matt, we had Jaden Cox in for camp here. And one of the things he actually discussed was when he was a sophomore in college. It was funny because one of the kids said, how important is nutrition to you? And Matt, this guy is tight-lipped. I couldn't get him to tell me what way he was going to go, first of all. And then the kids asked him, and he's like, listen, I'm not answering. Don't ask anymore. But the kid said something about nutrition, and he kind of played the question off. And I said, whoa, Jaden, let me ask you this. And I said, I remember the Missouri coaches saying his diet was like historically bad, like one of the worst diets ever. And now I see him posting about this USANA nutrition. So it seems as though, from an outsider's perspective, that nutrition is actually important to you now. And so he did cop to it. He said, when I was younger in college, I ate gross. I like to go to Taco Bell. And he said there was one specific thing he had, with the athletic dining hall. He said he would put crumbled up Oreos in a cup and then fill it with chocolate milk and eat it. And I was like, oh God, that's gross. And so he said he struggled with that early in his college career, and that was something that he had to get a little more serious about. It made an impact later in his college career and now later in his life. And so I thought that was interesting and funny. And so just because someone's a great wrestler doesn't mean they got their diet all the way figured out. So for some of these guys, it's going to take them a while to figure it out. So who knows? Maybe Gavin Hoffman will get better and Ethan Smith. We don't know. We're not sure yet.
Yeah, and I think this is where, as excited as we are about Sasso and Pletcher's win over Demas, you kind of don't take it with a grain of salt, because obviously these are good quality wins that are going to have an effect later on when it comes to seeding at the end of the year. So it's not that I'm saying you've got to dismiss results. Obviously they're important, but there's a variety of things. For most guys, they have to work through a lot of things, right? I mean, just look at Wisconsin. They're ranked, depending on where Wisconsin's ranked, 3rd, 4th, 5th in the polls, and they had a nail biter against Army, where Army's got to be really pleased about the potential they showed there. And for Wisconsin, they got to think, well, we'll take that win, but we still got a lot of work to do there, right? Because we could have easily lost this match. That was a totally winnable match that they probably walked in not even questioning what the outcome was going to be, but it turned out to be a little tighter than they thought it was going to be. And
well, I mean, I don't know if I totally 100% agree with that. I mean, I know Wisconsin obviously is ranked highly, but I would venture to say, they're more of a tournament team. They have the dual meet team. They have some guys who are ranked really, really highly, and then they have a whole bunch of guys. We do not have a ranked individual at 125. We don't have a ranked individual at 157. We don't have a ranked individual at 174 or 197. So there are a whole bunch of weights where there's not a ranked individual at Wisconsin. And some of those kids, like for example, Mikey Cullen, had a really good weekend even though he's not ranked. But when you're that type of team, we always talk about this, Matt, with the big one a couple years back was NC State, right? When they had 10 really good guys across the board, but they didn't have any superstars yet. And when you're building a program, it's really tough to build really high-level guys kind of across the lineup. You might get a couple here or there, but then to build that depth in where you're having a guy who's, say, a top 10, top 15 guy at every single weight, that takes time. It's really, really, really challenging.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting about NC State a couple years ago, because they kind of approached their success in the reverse way of most building programs. Like, with Wisconsin, you would think, yeah, if you can get two, three, four really good individuals, that's a good way to start the building process. Well, NC State, what was it? Papalizio's second or third year, they had 10 strong where they reached the national dual finals, but they didn't necessarily have the tournament team.
Well, they had one. They had Gwiz, right? They had the one really good individual in Gwiz, but they didn't have a lot of other guys placing highly. So, we shifted off onto Wisconsin's team. So I guess we could just go right into that as a nice natural transition. Wisconsin competed in San Diego in a quad with Army, Navy, Fresno State. I think it was good look. Good getting a first look at Seth Gross in a Badgers singlet. I thought he looked really good. I thought across the board, a pretty solid performance by Wisconsin. Not everything went to plan, I would say, but I thought pretty good. Army, Navy, and Fresno, again, none of them are bad teams. They're all pretty solid teams. So, kind of a competitive quad all the way around. The one thing, Matt, I want to say is, are you putting Seth Gross at number one on the Hodge contention right now, or are you moving him down the list a little bit?
No, nothing's changed for me. He's got to be up there, top 2 or 3 for sure, if not number one.
Okay.
And I think you got to give him some opportunity to compete too. I think this is the tricky part about the Hodge.
So he had bonus in all of them this weekend.
And that's the tricky thing is like if you're gonna get in Hodge contention right away, you have to kind of have that Sasso type performance right out of the gate, and you got to continue it throughout.
Damn, I'm giving if we're giving Hodges right now, I'm giving it to Sasso. Sasso's got my Hodge.
I don't think Gross took himself out of the mix, but I don't think he bolstered his cause either. I mean, he got bonus points, which is good, what you would expect. But I'm sure in Gross's mind, he's a little pissed off.
Pin major.
Yeah, I'm sure in his mind he wanted to go pin or pin tech or. He was looking for.
I think so Casey Cobb was ranked number 22. Gary Joint was number 18. And the Army guy was unranked. So two of the guys were ranked. So he had some decent competition there. So, I would say if he would pin, or, had a Sasso type performance or maybe Tech followed the number 8 guy or something, it probably would have been, a little better. But, no, I think a solid weekend by him. Made, bonus points against 2 ranked individuals. I think it's a really positive thing.
I guess.
Were we done?
This is kind of an interesting point because we're talking about 2 of the top teams. We've been talking about Ohio State. We've been talking about Wisconsin and the different approaches they have to the start of the season. You got Wisconsin who decided to go on the road and jump into their dual meet part of the schedule to open.
Wisconsin is all on the road this month. It's crazy.
But it's interesting to see, the thought process behind how coaches structure their schedule. You got Ohio State wrestling in open tournaments. You got
They almost always go to, does Ohio State always go to the Michigan State Open? Because I think they do as long as
it just makes a lot of, logistical sense. It's 3 hours away. Guys can get in the car. They can go up there. You don't have to have this big ordeal about, busing your kids. So it's interesting, back to my point, the philosophy for coaches as far as how they structure their schedule from open tournaments at the beginning of November to Wisconsin jumping into the dual meets to Ohio or Penn State only having 1 tournament on their schedule this year.
They don't wrestle. They don't wrestle at all. So Wisconsin goes. They went on the road at those 3 schools: Army, Navy, Fresno, and San Diego. They go at Buffalo, at Edinburgh, at Utah Valley, at Iowa, at SIUE tournament. I mean, they're pretty much they have a home match against Kent State on December 19th. That's the first time they'll be at home, so they're traveling a lot. But then obviously second semester, specifically February, they're on the road at Purdue. And then they're home for the rest of February until the Big Ten championships.
That's really nice. It's really nice for those guys. And I'm sure that's what Bono was looking.
I'd rather be home in March I'd rather be home in February.
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
For sure.
Hey, since you did bring up Penn State, I guess we had a couple of their guys wrestling at the Clarion Open. Carter Staroki looked good. But Michael Beard. I got to see what rank Bullsack is because I don't think I think
he's
in
in there.
but
I mean,
not
he's
super
been a
high.
guy that he's been a couple
Is he? Let's
time
see.
qualifier, right?
Oh man, he's only at 23, man. So I was thinking Greg Bullsack was a little higher than that, but he beats Michael Beard, a guy that Michael Beard was the number 1 ranked guy. He grade-shirted last year, was training at Penn State, from my understanding. And Bullsack beats him 11-8 in a fairly, I don't know, not convincing match, I guess you'd say. I guess that doesn't bode well for Penn State if Kyle Connell doesn't pan out, because a lot of people were talking as though Michael Beard could hop right in there, an All-American this year, and losing right off the bat to number. No, not here. It is November. You are correct on that. He can make big jumps, but that's probably not a promising start that they wanted for him.
Yeah, I mean, but
who knows? Maybe Kyle Connell pans out and Beard stays in red shirt and he comes out next year.
Or we'll see. Or maybe it's one of those things, because Cale's done this several times in the last couple of years. Maybe waiting until the mid-semester break to really make the call. Let him. Don't put any pressure on him. Let him keep wrestling in some open tournaments here. See how the results grow, and then make that decision before you. Well, does he wrestle or do you keep him in red shirt? I wouldn't be surprised, especially since Connell, he can go right away, and they have a quality guy that can put in right away. Just let him go, take some pressure off Beard, say, hey, we've already got an All-American here. Mm-hmm. You just focus on yourself, keep developing, keep honing and refining what you're doing. And then maybe the end of December, January, we have a discussion. And I'm sure they're planting that seed now. Like, hey, don't just think you're redshirting now. Train and compete with the attitude that you're going to be the guy. And then come December, the end of December, you're going to give us a choice to make. But if you kind of just go into the season thinking, oh, we've got Connell, he can, he'll be the guy. He's an All-American. I can just redshirt this year. Maybe that urgency to develop and get the results you need to get may not be there. But, I could see one of those things where, it's a mid-year decision. But I do think, and again, I really thought Bullsack was a couple-time qualifier. I could be wrong, but it's not like he's bad. I mean, he's mature. I think he's a fifth-year senior.
He's solid.
He's big. Yep. He's physical. He's very mature. Yeah.
So not the end of the road. Hey, Matt, I want to circle back to Ohio State. Not this is Ohio State podcast, but that was a really good team. A lot of notable individuals. I am blanking. Who won the wrestle-off? Caleb Romero or Rocky Jordan?
Rocky beat him, I believe, 3-2.
Rocky won.
3-2 or 2-1.
Okay. Yeah. So this weekend, Rocky finished all the way down in 6th place. Well, kind of 5th, because Michigan State Open was so long they didn't wrestle some of the.
Well, because they can't now, Ben. Just to jump in there real quick, there's a match limit that you can get.
Oh, really?
You can't wrestle more.
So what? Is it 6?
Yeah. So I would anticipate when you see a lot of defaults in the 5th and 6th place matches, that's because they reached their match limit on the day, and so they had to just stop wrestling.
Got it. That's funny. They should probably limit the bracket size or something to that.
But I think that the thing,
so we don't run into that.
The thing with Rocky, and that's one of the things when you're doing an open tournament, I think more and more coaches are getting more familiar. Like, I think a lot of coaches cut it off at a number, an entry amount. I think what you're going to tend to see is you're going to limit individual entries per weight class based upon are you going to reach or exceed your one-day match limit.
Yeah, I agree.
But back to Rocky just a little bit. I mean, I think it's kind of well documented.
He kind of. I mean,
he's been out for the entire year. He had surgery last year, so he didn't.
On his foot.
So he didn't get. He really. I don't even think he wrestled any competitive matches last year. I think he got the surgery fairly early in the year. They made.
I think you're right.
They made a quick decision. So. Yeah, he won the wrestle-off. He beat Romero in wrestle-offs. Romero actually won Michigan State, I believe. So I think
Romero was pretty good.
Yeah, he did. So I would give Rocky a little bit of time. One, to get accustomed to college competition. Number two, just get used to competing again. He hasn't competed in well over a year now, I think, since the end of his senior year. So we're talking about we're talking more like a year and a half that he actually hasn't competed. And so that was his first real competition in quite a long time. So I would say give him some time to get some matches under his belt, get battle tested again, get mentally hardened again where he hasn't been as accustomed to. Let that play out for some time. And I think that top half of Ohio State's lineup is probably a work in progress over the next, couple months.
I think that's fair. Okay, so where else do you want to go? Because we have tomorrow. I think we're running out of time. We have tomorrow also. Is there anything else? Oh, let's go one last thing on the Michigan State Open. One guy that I think looked really good, and we were kind of excited to see how he would play out is Mason Paris. I believe he had all pins, and then he beat up Matt Stencil in the finals. And Stencil's a guy who I think, if I remember right, pinned him last year. I
think I read a stat, Ben, where those two guys have wrestled 3 times for an accumulated duration of 1 minute and 30 seconds. I think I read somewhere.
Well, it was a decision this time.
But before that, there'd been quick pins the 3 previous times. I believe so.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Stencil was number 5. Mason Paris was number 9. So for Mason to get a 9-2 win, that's a really nice win. By him.
I think one other performance at the Michigan State Open that really jumped out at me was Kendall Coleman from Purdue. He was a freshman, 157, took out number 6 Barone from Illinois, beat Luan, who's not really ranked, but he should be ranked fairly high.
He's good. Yeah, real deal.
And then he beat Artelona, number 8 from Penn in the finals. So
that's a good weekend for him. I forgot about him.
Huge as a freshman for Penn State or Purdue coming off, that's his initial performance. So.
Yeah, that was really good. He's a Chicago kid, so I've seen him quite a bit. He's really tough, but obviously you never know how kids are going to transition to the next level. So that was a good opening tournament for him.
I think there's a lot of other things tomorrow, right? There's so much wrestling going on. We didn't touch on the Princeton Open. We didn't touch on the Virginia Tech Missouri duel. We didn't really talk about Minnesota had a duel. There was a Cowboy Open out of Wyoming. I think I really wanted to talk about Northern Colorado had a phenomenal opening weekend again.
Well, don't give away all of our juice for the next show.
So I think those are.
Don't give it all away.
Those are things we can touch on. And then we got to jump into upcoming events this weekend too.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, Matt, that's it for episode 98. We will talk again this week. And you have a special question for me also, so I'm also excited for that. We'll kick the episode off with that tomorrow.
All right, sounds good.
Peace.